Hi coaches, how's everybody doing? Glad to see so many on the call tonight. This is the first in our series of nursery workshops or webinars, of which there's going to be 3. So tonight's topic is fundamentals of play. The one next Wednesday is play for all, and the following Wednesday is going to be the family of games. These will all form part of a new coaching resource that will be accessible from the Derry website. So just to make you aware, tonight's presentation will be recorded. If you have any questions for the presenters, pop them into the chat function on the right hand side, and I'll look after that. In terms of the run order for tonight, when I was coming up with these presentations, I suppose I wanted to try and get as good a presenters as I could. And absolutely delighted I'll have Owen Mooney, originally from Fermanagh, now working in Dublin as a Learning and Games Development Coordinator for Dublin GAA. Owen's also doing his PhD study in play and sport with Leeds Bacchus University. Owen has worked with the Olympics Ireland. He has spent time over with Rocklands GAA in New York. Former Ulster NA coach, delivering Key Stage 1, who would have had Terence McWilliams. Obviously, we know Terence from Kilrea. Terence would have been Owen's boss at the time, and absolutely delighted to have Terence on the call tonight as well to share his knowledge. Terence, obviously, the former games manager for Ulster. During that time with Ulster GAA, would have specialised in fundamentals, has read a couple of books, has managed the highly successful Department of Education programme at Key Stage 1 for Ulster over a number of years, and absolutely is still the go-to person in terms of fundamentals across the county. So really high-profile cast on tonight with Owen and Terence. I think Jeannie is going to pop in and join us there as well, Owen. Not sure what time Jeannie goes to bed, but it'll be interesting to hear what Jeannie's insights are as well. So look, I'll hand you over to Owen and Terence. Absolutely delighted to have them on. Looking forward to the next hour. And if anybody has any questions, please pop them in the chat box, and we'll try and make this as interactive as we can.
Cheers, Chris. I'll make a start. Again, as Chris said, it'll be an hour. I'm roughly about 20 minutes. However, there's a reason for me being 20 minutes. I'll get rid of Jeannie first, because trying to do a webinar with a puppet on your hand is not easy. And trying to coach with 2 puppets in your hand is even harder, with the puppets in the office. So as Chris said, I'm going to be 20 minutes, Terence going to be 25, but huge thanks to Chris and Derry GAA for the invite to take part in the nursery webinar series. As you can see on the screen, I am the warm-up act before the master takes over. Terence, as Chris said, is a former boss of mine, and outside my family, in fairness, he's the person who's had the biggest influence on me, both as a person and especially as a coach, being involved in the Denny programme. I've learned so much from him. In fairness, over the last week, he's learned a lot from me as well. So I've been the master in terms of webinars and Microsoft Teams, but I'm definitely continuing to learn from Terence. He's a mentor, a huge support to me, but more importantly, he's a friend, and I'm humbled to have him present alongside me. So just getting into it. In terms of, before I actually start, the first engagement that I want for you to use the chat function is, and Chris is going to let me know kind of what's coming through. So what do you want from this webinar, or what are you expecting to get from the webinar? So 1 word, 2 words, makes no real difference, because what I want is just to get an idea and a sense of how we've pitched this, because my experiences and Terence's experiences, trying to put that together and then trying to marry it with people who are the attendees coming on the workshop is difficult. So again, just what you're expecting, what you're hoping to get from it, and just put it into the chat function, and Chris will let me know a couple of things that are coming through. And one other thing, if you're not comfortable putting it into the chat function, that's fine. Just try and make sure that you have a notebook beside you, as well, that you're making notes, making your own reflections, and hopefully we're going to help you along the journey. What's coming through, Chris, or is there anything?
Silence.
Class, even better. So hopefully the stuff that I go through will resonate with you. And Kind of why I did that question. I'm always curious, and anytime I do a webinar or workshop, whether it's practical or whether it's online, I'm always asking why for myself. What's my why? And a little bit like Mindy from Animaniacs, I'll keep asking why a number of times until the person I'm asking gets more exacerbated and there's steam coming out of their ears, and then I'll stop. And I won't do what Mindy does and say, okay, I love you, bye-bye, but I will stop, reflect, and then go back and maybe ask another question. And it can be very annoying asking why all the time and why are we doing this? What's the point of that? What if we did this? But it's just a curiosity, and how a coach is a little bit like organized chaos. Questions bring in organized chaos. And because of that sentiment, we learn best when problems and questions come before solutions and answers. This webinar is a mix of research-backed insights and our own valued experiences, reflections, and coaching practices. Myself and Terence, just to help you think about what makes sense of who you're coaching, why coaching fundamental movement skills are vital, a greater understanding of what fundamental movement skills are, and how to implement a program within your club. I'm looking after the who and the why, and Terence is looking after the why, or the what and the how. So you will take what you want from this webinar, in fairness, but as I said, our aim is to achieve this, to create a sense of reflection on your part, rather than giving you a load of stuff. It mightn't work, because by posing the questions, by posing what if questions, or I wonder what Terence talked about, I wonder if that would work. Because what works for me or Terence or Balahi or Fanville might not work so seamlessly in Maherfeld or Swatra. So again, a lot of it depends on your context, and we want you to create, a little reflection on what you're doing, what your club is doing. So hopefully we'll do that throughout the webinar. I won't, and Terence might, but I don't think he is giving you a lot of takeaways at the end. But what we will have done is just create some questions that you'll be able to think about for yourself, because there's no point in coming in and telling you what to do. We wouldn't do that anyway. You know your context better than we do. And the model that you kind of see on your screen for the who, what, and how when making goals and planning decisions is taken from Andy Abraham, Dave Collins, and Bob Muir, and it's helped me in terms of my decision making. But like I mentioned, because I'm always curious of my way and trying to better understand myself, but also who I'm coaching, what I'm coaching, and how I'm coaching. And tonight, obviously, it was about fundamental movement skills, and I'm going to touch on a little bit about play. I'll go into more detail on play next week and the following week with Dr. Richard Cheatham. But specifically for tonight, we'll be discussing the exposure to the skills, exploration, opportunity, guidance, and more importantly, fun. They're not called fundamental for nothing. So into the chat function, hopefully get more engagement than we did at the start. And this one, again, one word that you associate with children. Put it into the chat function. One word, like it could be a couple of words is fine, but one word that when you think of a child, when you think of children, it creates a foghorn in your mind. That's what I think about when I say children and when I think of children. So what's the kind of stuff that's coming through, Chris? Or is there?
Fun.
Class. Anything else?
Energy, joy.
Deadly.
Energetic. Attention, keen. None of these people must be doing any homeschooling, because that's not my experience over the last.
And that's exactly what's going to go on now. So those words are extremely positive, which is great. But can you think of any more challenging words, not negative, but challenging words that you would have experienced with your own children or children within your family or coaching children? So what else is coming through? Any more challenging words?
There's the demanding, mad, chaos. All the negative stuff's coming now. All the challenging stuff. Challenging, draining, patience, chaos, distracted.
Class. And that links in very well. We heard patience and play and chaos, and that's very much my section. What you see on your screen, you're going to see a lot of chaos in the next slide after this. But the fundamental movement skills are the foundation for movement competency, and it's vital that these are strong and solid, so that the child, but also youth and adults, and Terence will touch on this as well in his own context, can have the best opportunity to learn and develop. So developing kind of fundamental movement skill domains through locomotor, as you'll see on the screen. So the body moving kind of in any direction, any pathway from one point to another, getting from A to B. Stability. So the body balancing in one place, static, or while in motion, so a dynamic balance and moving, along those lines, and then bringing in manipulative skills and object control. So controlling objects with a hand, foot, or an implement. So hurl, stick, bat, racket, whatever way you want to work it. But again, as you see, all these skills require appropriate learning opportunities for a start to promote the foundation of competence during childhood. And specifically, I'm kind of talking about as soon as a child is born and they're able to keep their head up and have the strength in their neck to have their head up and not to have it fall down. And tummy time, there's body control and stability. Locomotor, when they start crawling, when they start shuffling, bum shuffling, or moving forwards and backwards before they start crawling. All of that is fundamental movement skills, and they're doing that through play, by trial and error and having a go at something. And it's fundamental movement skills, as I'll discuss a little bit around play and chaos, because they're so important and because they are fundamental throughout a session, throughout the lifespan of a child, a youth, and adult. That's where it fits in terms of physical literacy for life. So in terms of the research, and I'll discuss a little bit more about the research later on. So studies have shown that strong foundation for fundamental movement skills, that developing these core skills early can have a positive impact on confidence, health and well-being, cognitive function, and communication. So Terence is going to discuss later on that it's like building a house. So he'll talk about that later on. So in terms of what you see in the previous slide, and I want you to kind of have that fundamental movement skills slide in your head, because you're going to have a little bit of a webinar catchphrase. So instead of say what you see, we can't hear you, so type what you see. And when I'm playing this, I'm going to play it twice. So this here was a session in Rockland. It was actually taken 2 years ago. It came up in my memories. And I didn't know how many were coming. I knew it was a lot. So I needed help in terms of the parents. We had loads of coaches, but I needed extra help, and I didn't know how many was coming, and it was like a feed of children just coming through the door. It was never ending. Where then during the session, I had an overall theme for the session, and because of that overall theme, it allowed me then to gauge what the children knew and what they could do. So by using different pieces of equipment. But the parents that you see on the side that aren't playing and that aren't involved, they're also talking to other people, other parents that they don't know. So we're creating that community of practice. So into the chat function, type what you see. So what fundamental movement skills do you see? And if you might have an idea of what you think my overall theme for the session was. All right. So again, we have balloons, we have balls, we have children just walking about looking for a partner. But it is organised chaos, and the noise, you can't hear the sound, but the noise there was ridiculous. There was no masking of the echoes, so it was very, very loud, and having younger children, and there's a few babies floating about there as well, was difficult. So Chris, what's kind of coming through there?
It's quiet there yet. If you want to just play that again, Owen, maybe.
Play it again. So yeah, yeah. So we see loads of locomotor, but what types of locomotor do we see then? What types of handling skills, what types of manipulation, object manipulation do we see? So where Terence is going more sport specific around this end, but I'm just looking at the overall locomotor object control ball manipulation. So was there anything else coming through there, Chris?
Movement, jumping, moving in different directions.
Class.
Ball throwing, good use of the balloon.
Class. And you'll see there, guys, that's complete organised chaos. Now, that's not a first session, obviously, that's 2 years in. And the first time I did this with the group was roughly about 6 weeks in. It was small and steady. KISS, as I'll talk about later on, keep it simple. So keep it short and sweet. And Terence will go into a little bit more detail in terms of how to set things up to be more specific, but also to bring play into it also. So why did I do that? And why did I bring in play and kind of asking the children, asking the parents, asking the coaches, asking the club what they want is just to be like Netflix. And my Netflix, as sure as some other people's, is getting loads of views, especially since last March. But I have 4 profiles on my Netflix. I have also Mickey Quigg's Disney Plus, and I have his profile, but I don't mess up his profile because Netflix is the most person-centered platform you can get. Anybody who watches anything else that's not related to what you like, if they're watching your profile, then that'll upset the rest of your programs. But by asking children what they want, asking them what they enjoy doing, you're then balancing what they want with what you think they need. And with that video that you've seen beforehand, my overall theme was handling. But you'll see 3-year-olds, get them a ball, give them a balloon, show them or ask them, show me what you can do with that piece of equipment. And they'll do what's comfortable for them. If I give the same to Chris and Terence, they'll do what's comfortable for them. Rather than saying, here, we're going to do the solo today, and this is how you do it. Well, I don't know or how the children, if they can do the solo or not, but by saying, show me what you can do, you'll see children in that video holding it just. You'll see them picking it up, setting it down, trying to hit it, catch it, bounce it, throw it, whatever. But then that gives you a better idea of, okay, well, Chris's ball manipulation is excellent. He's starting a solo, he's trying to kick out of his hands. But Terence over here loves his bounce and plays basketball. And Owen only wants to hold it tight. Well, that's fine. That just means that I need to challenge Chris and Terence a little bit more, and maybe Owen needs a little bit more help. But that's where being person-centered, asking them, and again, doing it through play is a good way of doing it. But then safety comes in and chaos comes in, which is challenging in fairness. So there's a lot of trial and error and trying things out, and it doesn't happen perfect all the time. So going on to the why, so a few slides left, guys. So in terms of the benefits, now Terence is going to go more into, more into depth in this, but for me, linking into next week's webinar in terms of the benefits, you'll see them on the screen, but in relation to play and my research, the physical development comes in for fundamental movement skills, mainly for gross and fine motor skills. But then also I'm bringing in social emotional development for the child. So playing with their friends, building resilience, self-regulation, getting them to make sure that, it's okay to make a mistake. Okay, fix it. Try and fix it yourself. To have a supportive environment that you're creating that sense of trust with the children, with the parents, with the club and with the community. Speech and language comes in, especially when you're working with 3 to 4-year-olds. You're giving them a new word, cross-curricular links, and then you're not explaining it to them, but you're giving it to them in a sense of, okay, well, here's what catching is, because they might know what catching is, but they might be able to do it. So showing them videos on an iPad, showing them pictures, getting them to watch their friends, getting them to watch you, or just letting them have a go at it and see what happens, and then you can help them. And then again, cognitive development. So again, getting the children to think about what they're doing, be able to problem solve, be able to answer questions, be able to kind of tell you what they're doing, but also have an idea of why they're doing it. And again, it comes back to the why. And Terence will go into a little bit more detail on that. So the first kind of bit of, and the main bit of research that I want to talk about in this is the moving well, being well. So it's looking at Irish children's physical literacy status. So phase 1, it came in 2 phases, and there's a new bank of resources that were only released last week. So phase 1 was a study that assessed just over 2,000 children, 5 to 12 years of age, in all aspects of currently accepted physical literacy model. So all the fundamental movement skills. Phase 2 then was an implementation of a pilot intervention to help children improve their physical activity and physical literacy skills through fundamental movement skills in a unique way. So areas of the assessment included movement proficiency through fundamental movement skills, perceived motor skill competence, motivation, confidence, health and fitness, body image, well-being, and physical activity participation. So the results were a little bit shocking in fairness, because it showed that Irish children were well below average in their fundamental movement skills, and that those who are more proficient in fundamental movement skills were more active, have higher fitness levels, increased well-being, and are more motivated and confident to take part in physical activity. So that was a huge piece of information and insight from the research. Now, in relation to my kind of experience in Rockland and with the Denny program, because of the Irish and again the island of Ireland in terms of the education system, there's no PE teachers at primary level. So it's more or less coaches coming in and doing the PE for the teachers, but also in terms of the Denny program, we were doing the PE facilitated with the teacher, so the teacher would repeat it. But in America, it's completely different. So there's PE teachers in elementary schools, so the children at 4 years of age are moving from classroom, going to music, going to drama, coming into PE. So then in terms of their fundamental movement skills, they're more dynamic, it's embedded earlier. So then I can challenge them more around games, around play, around the more really sport specific end. And that's where, in terms of government and funding and policymakers and the research, it's saying that. But again, money, government, it comes into it in terms of getting PE teachers into schools, and it's absolutely vital. But having it in clubs, and that school club link is at the minute the best that we can do. And the school club links with Ulster, being involved with it before, and again across the island of Ireland, is getting a lot better. But within Ulster, it's absolutely excellent in a lot of counties and a lot of clubs. And again, Terence is going to go in a little bit more detail on that. Just in terms of some of the resources, with Ulster GAA especially, Terence is going to talk about the Gaelic Star programme. But in relation to Sport NI, Sport Ireland coaching, and I coach kids around fundamental movement skills, around coaching children, the free MOOCs that are available through Leeds Beckett and I Coach Kids, and also some of the Dublin resources that Ger O'Connor and Dublin GAA have out there is excellent. And again, all of this is my experiences, Terence's experiences, but go out there, have a go at it, try it out, because as I said before, what works for me and Terence mightn't work for Fahanville or Swatra, but might work really well for Slough or Steelstown. Another piece of research in relation to kind of the full long-term athlete development is the Rampage framework from Kevin Till. Now, I specifically haven't put in the F10 model from the GAA in relation to the Talent Academy, because I'm going to talk about more detail of it next week. And I know Terence is going to touch on a little bit as well later on. But this here session is a framework and a guide for including long-term athlete development, and you'll see fundamental movement skills, locomotor, object control, from under 6 for novice coaches and experienced coaches right the way up to elite and high performance. And Kevin Till works with Leeds Rhinos and Leeds Beckett University a lot, with Leeds United and Leeds United Women as well. So it's research-backed practice. And again, it's a framework. You take what you want out of it, have a go at it, but reflect on your own practice. So the last slide here is, before kind of move on to Terence's, I know I've given you a lot, and Terence will give you a lot as well, but the reality is obviously very different. The dream plan is go to A to B and go to A to Z and go through all the stages, but reality is very different. To go one step forward, with children especially, you might have to come 4 steps back. And with adult players as well, it's the same. With fundamental movement skills, it is as well. So it's just being aware of having patience, keep it short and sweet. Whether it's creating your plan for your club, your nursery plan, tracking the progress of that plan, making sure that you keep things in perspective and have patience. Terence is going to kind of go into more detail now. So I'm going to share my screen, and Terence is going to get ready. So the research and the references that I have and I've had a look at, again, Chris is going to send you all this as well. So if there's any of the articles that you see on screen that you want, you're more than welcome to ask me for it, and I'll send you it on. So just on that, so as Terence is getting ready to kind of share his screen, if there's any questions that come in during the chat, I know Chris is going to ask us at the end, so there might be a few people coming in. I know there's a few hands up there as well. So thanks for your engagement, guys, and I'll hand you over to the master.
Thank you, Owen, and for your kind words there. It's interesting that you've been my mentor over the last couple of days, especially with teams and this IT stuff. I just can't get my head around it at all. And thank you, Chris, and the Derry GAA for giving me the platform to help coaches plan and deliver the fundamental movement skills. As Owen has dealt with the who and the why, I'm going to try and show where the what of the fundamental skills and where they fit in a long-term pathway. So, first question is, who do you feel should be responsible for the delivery of the fundamental skills? If you would just put that in the chat box. So who do you think should be responsible for delivering the fundamental skills?
Just move on to your next slide there, Terence, because I know it's on your next slide. Yeah.
Anything coming through there, Chris?
Yeah, so Chris on mute, but club, parents first, then coaches, our club, coaches, coaches again coming in, our club again, players.
Okay, got most of them. But to me, the key one is the parents, and especially during the pandemic now, and we don't know when we're going to get back to normal. Parents have a key role now in learning the fundamental skills, which they might not have had before this. Siblings, great to see them back out again, playing again in the backyards and and streets and so on, and their peers, friends playing with them. The coach at the club, the teacher at the school, and this is the whole program's about setting up the club fundamentals in the club, as well as the community. So, what are the fundamental skills? So, if you look at it's like building a house there, where you've got to have the foundation stones for movement literacy and lifelong learning. So they're introduced, as you saw there in the video, as early as possible, from that first stage of 3 years there, which are what I call the rudimentary movement skills, that the child, youth and adult have the best opportunity to develop further and apply them with confidence in zone setting settings, which may lead to sustained involvement in sport, physical recreation and other daily choice like lifting and carrying, which I have found out over this past year with my total hip replacement, where literally I couldn't walk and had to learn to walk again, get up off a chair and so on. So sometimes coaches get this mixed up, between the fundamentals and those early skills. So that's why we, if you look at the one on the right there, you'll see the active start, which is a global term. So we've changed that to suit the GAA ethos of Gaelic Start, which is basically 4 to 5 years. And you can see in the resource that the Ulster GAA, the primary school coaches produced there with cards, warm-ups and skills and you name it. Stage 2 then, which is from 69 years of age, 68 for girls, 69 for boys. That's the fundamentals program comes in there. And then you work on up through the program. So it's basically made up of the ABCs of athleticism, the RJTs of athletics. Now you might ask, well, where in your session can you introduce that? To me, that's where you introduce in the warm-up, your spatial awareness, your dodging skills, which come into evasive skills later on, your running skills, your technique of proper arm and leg coordination, your jumping skills, jumping over hoops, that builds up there. And then in part 2, developing the handling, the kicking, the striding, and the passing skills. And if we take, a 4 or 5 year old, they're actually playing a game there. All those skills are actually involved if they've got a ball. When you watched Owen in the balloon there, they were moving, they were jumping, they were kicking, they were handling. So all those skills were happening there with their own toy, if you like. So let's look at how do we plan this. It's okay talking about it, but how do we plan this in our club? To me, the key is the committee, coaching committee, which should be a subcommittee of your overall committee. And to have a look at just where you're at now, what's going well, what's not going well. Some clubs have already got very successful Gaelic starts set up, thanks to the help from the DNI coaches. And where you want to be, like what goals do you set? What should your 5, 6 year old be able to do at the end of the year and so on? And who are you going to get involved in this? And it has to be collaborative planning by everybody, not one boy coming up with an idea and trying to force his idea on everybody else. So, and we look there and those are the key people for any club, small club, middle club and big club. So what do you think the role of the coordinator would be? What the club register might be? What the child protection officer might be, and might the head coach? So if I was having my first meeting, those are the key people that I would want there. So what do you think the key coordinator, what might his role be compared to the club register, compared to the head coach? If you just maybe jot down, to even take one of them, jot down a role there. Any coming through there, Chris?
Nothing yet, T.
Okay, well maybe go on. So out of the coordinator there, he maybe gives a short talk, about the ethos, the philosophy of the Gaelic Start. Then I would get the club register. That's a chance of registering new players, get new parents in, and that might be giving out forms and so on. The child protection officer, critical for the vetting. And club discipline procedures then too can be set there. What you expect from your club, what children expect, coaches expect, and having a code of conduct there for each of them. Then your head coach, so he might be looking for other coaches to look after the different age groups, and he might have a rota basis there. Some clubs are very successful in doing that, not going out and asking people, will you take the under sixes? But if you ask someone, right, could you maybe give us a couple of days or an hour? Most people can give you an hour or a day. So that's a linear plan. So that night we might take them up. We might have that set up for them. Now, right away, you're maybe saying, oh my God, that's a lot of stations in our hall. Doesn't have to be that. You can take the 4 stations there, the first 4 there, do them for a couple of weeks and then take the next 4. And if you look through that, you'll see that we have most of the fundamentals covered there. So we try and get as many activities as possible. Now, this is a step up from Owen's, where the children come in, they've got their own ball and their own toy, and they're actually playing there. So there's a wee bit more structured now. Children a wee bit older, maybe 4 or 5 years of age. And you have to still get suitable tasks. Now, I've seen this set up, and the tasks are far too difficult for some children, too easy for others. The number of children will dictate the number of stations. So, for example, there's 16 stations there. I don't like more than 3 or 4 to station. 3 is a nice number because it gives them plenty of activity. And then at each station, I might have a bit of differentiation because a kid might be able to use a hurl, so maybe leave a bat there. Maybe use a small ball, maybe a medium ball. So have adequate equipment. Time, 2 or 3 minutes I find is long enough at a station, and 30 to 40 minutes is quite adequate for that age group with a 30-second changeover. After 2 or 3 weeks, I like scoring there. So I have scoring cards out for the parents at each station to mark down what their score is. Creates a bit of interest, and the children are motivated then. Or if you really want the competition, then what we do then is we put 2 teams at the station, as you can see there. So at A there, I have team 1 and 2 competing at the same task there. And this really creates the excitement because they're trying to beat the team next to them. Then all the even teams can go one way, the uneven teams go the other, and these can all go into a master scoreboard. That's a setup for outside. I know with maybe some dual clubs, so maybe I would have the hurling for the first half hour. You look down the bottom right there, you can see that they're working on skills, maybe a game there, still fundamental skills. Then after half an hour, they would move to the football skills. Then this is a wee bit more elaborate. I want you to have a wee look at that, and I want you to have a look and see what fundamental skills are being developed there and at what stations. So have a wee look at that and come up where you think some of the fundamental skills are being delivered, and have a wee quick look at one, or there's 2 stations there that have strength. So can you see the 2 stations that would maybe involve strength as opposed to coordination, as opposed to agility?
And this is a good way of getting them to kind of think about their own context as well. Terence, if they had this setup, what would they do different to you or me or Chris or anybody else?
Yeah. Coaches, do you notice anything different there about the middle of the pitch compared to the sides of the pitch, and what the C stands for. Anything coming through there, Chris?
Not yet, but I'm sure it was the same as the last one, because a few things did come through in the last one. Liam put in coordinator, organizer, and then getting the right coaches involved came from Killian. So Ashley's put in squats, medicine balls, strength.
Yeah, now when we say medicine balls there, I'm talking about the 2K, the little ones, the 5K, not big heavy medicine balls, or even old basketballs or old footballs. And the idea there is you can make that fun. You can have a card with a number on it where they have to go to a hoop, lift it up. They maybe have to do 10 squats there. Then they move to another one and do jump squats and so on. Notice there's a coach at each one there. Anybody come up with the other? Owen, can you suss out the other strength one there? You have to think about it.
Monkey races.
Why?
Monkey race. More kind of what parts of their body they're using. So they could be on 2 feet, but I'd say that you have them on hands-on feet moving. Yeah,
because I want to strengthen the arms and feet up on that. Any other ideas there, Owen, for any other?
Yeah, so Liam is centre of the pitch are all small-sided games in comparison to the rest of it. We have shoulder tackle strength. So again, that is a part of it, probably not what you're thinking, but again, it is, and that's one thing that that was the first one that I thought was shoulder strength as well.
Yeah, because when I was talking to Philip Kerr, and what Philip does sometimes is pull a couple of players out there, and the coach would give individual peer coaching there to that. What about the endurance one there, Owen? How would you run that? There's 2 teams there.
You could go relay races. So you kind of have 3 in the middle, so kind of 3 cheerleaders for each team cheering on their friend, and a little bit of competitiveness. But
that's an individual race, right?
Yeah, you could do an individual, or you could have one team trying to catch the other team. You could as well have a little bit of as I said, a relay race, but using the ball. So instead of a baton, they might have to throw the ball or hand the ball over or hand pass the ball or whatever way they want to pass the ball across. So then you're getting in the manipulation, the object control, as well as the locomotor and the balance as well.
What about the ladders and the hurdles there? What do you think I'm developing there?
Where are you? Oh yeah. Well, the ladders is running technique, what you're thinking about, but the hurdles, again, it could be 2 parts of running technique. So the ladders could be the arm movement, and the hurdles could be the bringing the hip up and knees up and high knees and driving the foot down after the hurdle. So that's what I would, if I was doing it. That's my context. That's not yours technically.
Yeah, and how many do you move around on?
Jesus, Terence, you've stumped me now. I'd go the agility skills. So endurance goes to sprint goes to agility goes to shoulder tackle, shoulder into 4v4, 4v4 down the circle score, down to 4v4 striking, 4v4 strike, and across the hurdles up the monkey race the running technique to squats, and then the group at squats have to go all the way around to endurance runs as quick as they can. Yeah. And the coaches would stay there for me, would stay at each of those games. The coaches wouldn't move. Okay.
When I was at the Ulster Council, the coaches came up with the idea of coaching cards for warm-ups. So I could give Chris, for example, that card there and ask him to, next session they're coming in. I always like a session with the parents only, where I take them through the activities so that they're familiar and they're confident and competent in being able to deliver it. So that one there, I like that one there, the snow pass, where it brings in dodging skills. And dome spaced out allows for spatial awareness skills. And again, it can be on the cards too. In the back of the card, it's harder or easier. So the coach can see there if a child's struggling, how to make it easier or how to make it harder. They also did out coaching cards, little simple cards there with a diagram. The top one there shows how to play the game. And the bottom one there shows the key points of the body parts of head, hands and feet with simple cues. I think sometimes every coaches get it wrong when they start picking far too many body parts. Instead of picking one part in one session, if I'm going to pick the head here, and I want to do Philip Kerr's with the head's down, you count 1, 2 before you can lift it, or the hands, big hands. So the cues are small. There are only few words, especially with 4, 5, and 5-year-olds. So there's the equipment you might need for outside. You're probably saying, "Oh my God, where are we going to get all that?" You don't need portable poles. Sometimes I just use the poles there. The Go footballs, those were the master tutors came up with those ideas. The first touch is a lighter one, softer leather than the quick touch one. Now I've seen 4 and 5-year-olds going out there and playing with the needle balls. They only have to get a slap in the face once, and that's them put off, maybe for life. So the equipment you use, the size you use, the colour you use are very, very important. Kevin Kelly came up with a hurl there. It's a brilliant wee hurl for hurlers, one-handed hurlers, fantastic. And if I was to ask you there, what piece of these next equipments would you need? If say we'd only money there for cones, domes, poles, and bibs and ladders, I would go for the domes every time, because you can use them for grids, you can use them for markers, you can use them for throwing, catching, and so on. And then there's your indoor equipment there. And it was interesting that Owen had the balloon. Not the first piece I use for 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds. They love it. It's easy, slow eye tracking. Before I go to the sponge ball there on the right, before I go to a smaller ball. And then if you look at the hurling equipment there, I know a lot of hurlers don't like me saying this, but I use the hand first of all, and I use a small bat, and then or that instead of that bat now I'd use Kevin's small stick, and then the other stick, the right size too. I've seen children going out with hurls, up to their waist, shouldn't be coming above the hip. And you have bibs there too. I like 4 sets of bibs, coloured bibs. I like skipping ropes there. It's amazing how many children can't skip now. Skip's a fantastic coordination one. Of course, you've got the hurdles there. That stability disc there. I still remember young Cormac was already standing on that. He was only about 5 years of age at P1, and Tony Scullion started throwing balls at him. He was able to pick them up and fire them down the hall. So that's where he started his fundamental skills up on the school. I saw this at one club. I thought it was a great idea. You know the way you're hogging stuff in and out. That's just a big metal container out there, and it's easy going at. It's beside the club.
Terence, in your experience, who should be responsible for the equipment, or whose job should that be?
That should be the equipment organizer. I like somebody in there. You know the guys maybe around the club there, and there's always 2 or 3 of them. And their job is to have that equipment, because going out before and 5-year-olds is different equipment to 6 and 7-year-olds, which is different equipment to other ones. So I would actually have equipment. To me, Chris, the equipment organizer is number 1, because that's the tricks of the trade. If carpenter hasn't got the tools, he can't do his work. So that's me. I would like to thank Chris and the Derry GAA and everyone for engaging and listening to myself and Owen. Also to Ben McGuckin, Jared O'Connor, and the Ulster Council for the graphics. Owen mentioned some resources there. One of the best for the planning is Jared O'Connor's Ready to Play. I have a whole box of them, Chris. If you want to call and buy, or anybody wants those, I say I have a box of those. Those are fantastic, because the whole planning process is in it. The Gaelic Start, the fundamental. From the Ulster Council, and also they did a very, very good, we did a good video there at one time. It's building better players, and it shows clips of agility, of balance, of coordination. So we hope you enjoyed the presentation, and hopefully it provided some aspects of fundamental skills that you can reflect on, as Owen says, for a better understanding of coaching practice in your club. So we're looking forward to hearing and answering your questions. Thank you.
Come on, Pete. You just want to unshare there, Terence, and hit the wee X. And he's back.
Did it go through okay?
Yeah, here. Hi, guys. I know he said that He said that
he's taught me well, hasn't he?
I was the master this week, but that's the first time we have actually done it without any issues. So Terence, well done. That was class. I look forward to your questions now. So my heart is beating a lot less now. So
see Declan Bradley there. Declan, no tough questions.
So again, guys, if you have any questions, put them in the chat function. But I have a kind of a question for Terence. Kind of just spooking them in this one, in fairness. So any questions that you have, put them in the chat and Chris will ask them. Terence, you kind of mentioned in terms of all the games and all of the 16 stations that you had in. Out of all of those games and skills, would there be any stage that you would go just stations or just games or both, or does that depend on the children?
That's a good question. When it's running for 2 or 3 weeks, if they're just doing the individual stations, children get fed up very quick, I think. So that's why I have the double stations in. What I do then is I take that away the last 15 minutes and I play your individual games. I play partner games, ND2s, show me what you can do with the ball. I maybe even give them a skittle and a ball and say, away you go, make me a game. So that's your first style of coaching there, which is discovery, which is freedom, and you'll see the games coming up there. I might even put 3 and give them a hoop and a skittle, and it might give me a game of turbo, and I maybe move in and show them. And in that one game of turbo, I might do the principle of attack and defense. So that's one way of doing it. If you have a big hall, brilliant. You can set that up on one side. The problem with setting it up, it takes a hell of a long time. I know all about that. It maybe takes half an hour to go in there setting them blinking stations up. So I know those set up. But what I do then on, I use the equipment as obstacles for the children to dodge about. So I might give them 5 points. I might say, right, off you go. You have 5 points. If you touch anything, then you take a point off. So you can actually make a game of that. You can have it. You can have them for jumping, and then they're moving into their stations.
Class.
Anything coming up there, Chris? Everybody's
Terence, we had one there.
An easy time here.
Where would you find out where those 16 stations were at? Or where would you get that information?
That information. Well, it's all on the it's on the chart there. If you go back to it, but basically, look, Chris, you set up your own. I mean, coaches can put down cones there and get kids to jump over them, put hoops down, get them to bounce on them. Where would you get them? Is that the equipment or the stations, Chris?
I think the stations, Terence. My plan is that as part of this nursery program, and it will be accessible from a new microsite on Derry GAA, these videos will be part of that, but also I'm hoping to work with yourself and Ben on digitalizing some of that other stuff, and having the resource there as it'll be downloadable for coaches. So for example, the books you spoke about there by Jer, with his permission, get maybe some of that up. You know, some of the stuff that we would have done, fundamentals in the past and the Gaelic Start resources, so trying to just make that more readily accessible for the coaches within Derry from the Derry website. So that might answer that one. John Harn, is the tug of war just pulling a rope, or is it something else?
There can be a long pole there. I find a small rope stored in their hands, unless you have a proper rope, which you can get in the web. You know, it's thick enough for their hands, because I've seen children getting angry and getting sore hands out of that one. So you just be careful, you know, what rope you use there. But a long pole, we can put 2 at one end, 2 at the other, and they're only pulling over a short distance on that one.
James Forrester, what happens when it all goes wrong?
I'll definitely take that one. I've seen that one. That kind of James put in, and I knew rightly that that would be one that would be asked to me, because it happens a lot, James, in fairness. When it all goes wrong, it's like obviously making sure that it's okay, and it's the same for the children. They learn from their mistakes. But you mentioned as well there, I can see in the chat, that if you haven't enough help, having help is vital. So I would class kind of coaching fundamental movement program as using the children as the guinea pigs. It's to get more coaches, more people involved in your club, create a create that conveyor belt of coaches, but also a conveyor belt of help and parent help and initiatives, and that everybody's in it together. You just don't drop the children down. And if the children, and that's something that it's happened in Rockland, but also in my own club in Listonski, that the children, if they were staying, the parent had to stay. Now, if the parent couldn't stay, then James's children and Chris's children, they know each other. So Chris is going to take the kids this week. James, you'll take them next week. But one of you is there. There's an actual adult there for the children. Now, they're there in help in terms of they don't have to coach, but they're the disciplinarians there, because parents do not want to see you bringing their children over because they're misbehaving. If it happens once, I can guarantee it won't happen a second time, just because of embarrassment. But again, you're not doing it to embarrass them. And it only gets to a stage where if it's really to do with a lack of safety, that's when I bring the child over. 9 times out of 10, the child will just be a mini coach with me. They'll stay with me for a little while. I'll have a wee quiet word. But again, that's over a few weeks. And the more numbers you have, the less help you have, that's going to create an issue. Terence mentioned about the coordinator, the education manager, and the head coach. Normally the head coach, and this is in my context, I would have them as the floating coach. So that Terence's coaches that are at each station, each game, they're looking after that game. But the floating coach is making sure that they're giving a little bit extra help, so that if there is any issues, then the floating coach will see that they're the head coach and they'll come over and help out a little bit extra, or just to make sure that the coaches aren't out of their depth a little bit. But it is going to go wrong at times, and 9 times out of 10 it'll go wrong more than it'll go right. So if that happens, just being aware of that and having a plan in your head, that the coaches are aware of what maybe games they're getting or what you're planning to do the following week, so that they have an idea of, okay, well, I'm going to do toilet tag this week. That's my game. I can change it if I want, but that I know I'm doing that game. So the more coach you have, the better. But again, the more help, and that's vital. But again, not worrying too much about it. And if you have the numbers coming, you obviously don't want to turn people away. So there's a little bit of balance in that. And that's where Terence talked about, last thing for me, that's where Terence talked about all of this plan happens before the first session. So don't start until you've kind of talked about it in the club, had a chat about it, tried to get some help already, and then coming up with a plan beforehand.
Yeah, if I just come in there, remember, really, the parent is responsible for discipline there, and that's why it's critical at the start. Either the child protection officer having a code of conduct for the parents and for the children, so the children know what to expect. The parent knows what to expect, and the coach knows what to expect. And I remember watching Owen one time. He had cards, and I wondered what these cards were for, because he gave a child a card, and he went over and talked. I don't know whether it was a yellow card or whatever, but that might have been the first. He maybe just said something to him. The next card could be a red card, and then during that there, the kid did something good, so he got another card that took him back to 0 again. But the key is having the right, if you've lots of activity there, I find when children are bored or they're in lines or the activity is too hard or it's too easy, that's where the discipline problems start. So have lots of activity. If you look on that station one there, there's no time to hang about. And the other thing I forgot to mention there too, during the changeovers, I like music there, and kids' music, not the dad's music, which can add to it too. So those are just some other wee remedies there. Anything else, Chris, coming up?
Terence, a couple of good questions around recruitment of coaches. Some are finding it difficult to get coaches at this age group. Coaches maybe not feeling confident. Any good ideas around recruitment? And Philip Kerr also made a comment there. Would you consider running a session with the coaches and the parents before introducing the kids? It might help the adults become a wee bit more confident. Oh
yeah, well, we mentioned that, Chris. I mean, I would never ever have 200 or 300 children arriving in on top of me. That's where, first of all, I look for the help. And I think that the pandemic has shown the importance of physical activity and mental activity. Now, I know I would say over the next year or so, parents are going to have to be very careful, and youths, because the only remedy out is physical activity. That's the only remedy out. because you simply just go for a walk and see how you feel after it. Now, the children are not getting that. And so it's absolutely critical that the parents now must take an important role in getting their children active. Already said there, 80–90% of Irish children haven't got the physical literacy skills. Now, there's something seriously wrong there with those key people I put in earlier. Is that the parents' fault? Is that the school's fault? Is that the club's fault? No, it's not. It's all our faults. And the other thing too, which I have found, the children are bored now in the houses and that. Oh my God, we had to be called in at dark, not from play. Now we've got to get those times back again, and we'll never have parents will never have a better chance of getting the kids involved in that again. And Philip's right there too, the coaching. I know in his club, and that's probably why they're one of the successful clubs, and not only in Derry. I mean, 2 years ago, they won blinking everything from 12 to 14 to 16 to reserves, no lot. That didn't happen by chance. That took 15–20 years. And if you look at Corofin and you look at the successful clubs, the one thing I do, I go there and see who the visionary was. You go into Crossmaglen, it was Tom McGregory. You go into Corofin, it was Frank Norris. You go into Nemo Rangers, and it was, I forget his name now. He's the goalkeeper for Cork. Can you remember it? But that took 15–20 years of hard work. Anything else there, Chris?
Just around getting good coaches to help, as opposed to completely relying on parents' turns. What a few strategies around that.
Yeah, so I'll come in that one, Terence. It's the more help you have, obviously, as I said, the better. Trying to get young coaches if you can. So I know that in a lot of counties, especially the summer camps, a lot of the young coaches to be 17 and up. So trying to get those kind of new early role models especially for the younger children, and it's helping you in terms of getting that conveyor belt of coaches coming through as well, and rather than relying on parents. But generally, it's always the parents, especially at that younger age. It's the parents are the easiest ones to get because they're coming down, and just to be able to ask to be staying. As you've seen in my video, they don't have to take part in the coaching, but they had to stay. So creating a community for themselves, for the children, but also that they're meeting new friends themselves as a parent, as getting involved in the club, coming down to the sessions. And the earlier that you can get coaches, the better. As I know Liam has put in kind of coaching assistants, having an assistant, young coaches there, having your sessions on the same evening as under 20 or a senior session is also a good way of doing it. So that you might have some of the senior players might stay on for an extra half an hour. In terms of the timing, that will help as well. So if it's if you have them for an hour, 45 minutes for a session, whatever it is, make sure it is for that time and don't go over that, because then everybody's going to be aware, okay, it's 6 to 7, we're in at 6, we're out at 7, that's it, done. So that's going to help as well. And then the last thing is, especially for that underage and that young age group, and there's a specific reason why I only coach specifically 3 to 6 year olds and adults, is because it's good crack, and I can do stuff with 3 to 6 year olds that I can do with adults. But it also is good for me as a coach to reflect and try things out, have a go at something, and it falls by my feet all the time. I have shocking sessions, and that's fine. Just making sure that you have an idea of your overall aim. But if that changes during the session, if you have to change the activity, or if you have to make it a little bit harder, change it. That's fine. But again, just making sure that you give yourself time to plan as a club, as Terence and Philip said, have a plan in place beforehand, have a couple of practice goes, even with some of the older age groups, run it for an under 12 session, but you're going to do it for under 6s, but just in terms of the changeovers, who you're going to have, how you're going to change it, and then run it with the 4-6 year olds and the under 8s. So the more you plan, the more help you get. That's vital, and I know Terence has something on that as well.
Yeah, you see the new framework, Chris, I'm not sure you're aware of it, but there's a new framework coming in the Ward 1 coaching and the Ward 2 coach, it never really got off the ground for whatever reason, I don't know. And then we complain, clubs complain about, well, we can't get coaches. Well, maybe we could throw that one back to the clubs. Why did they not attend as a Child 1 course on in the county, or a Child 2? So the F1 and F2, that's the fundamentals. That's the new course, which will be hopefully up and running if we get back to normal. God help us. The other thing there, they've actually found out that what we're doing here tonight is maybe the way forward. Instead of parents don't have a whole weekend to go away to the own bag or wherever. Look at what we can do here. The theory that we can pick up on here, which is the blended learning. So look at the sessions that your coaches are gonna pick up over the next 2 or 3 nights, Chris. Where the next one is just play. So you're going to get all those activities that maybe they're asking about there, which we haven't time to go into the night. That's maybe another web, Chris, where we actually look at, right, what do you do here? What is that? Cap the code. What is this such and such? Now, unfortunately, Chris, my video on that, when we tried to open it up, the blinking one don't up. So I had a whole video on that, which would maybe address that.
Just while you're doing the next question, Chris, just we have a few minutes left, but I know that some people are putting in stuff. I have put in my email address and I've put in Terence's, and we put up kind of our Twitter handle. So if there is anything that is asked and we don't cover or we don't get around to it, definitely contact myself and Terence afterwards.
Can I get a final plug?
Lads?
Can I get a final plug, Chris? I sped up this last year, so I started writing a book about coaching children. So everything that you were asking there, hopefully is in it. So it should be coming out in the next 2 months. Plug over.
We'll give you that one, Terence. Amazon link to follow. Good man. Look, lads, I think there's stuff coming through there, but we'll collate the questions and maybe start. If we don't get an opportunity to answer them, we'll maybe start with some of them next week as well. I know some of them will cross into the next topic. You happy enough for that, Owen?
Yeah, I'd be happy enough for that. And again, if anybody wants specific questions, my email address is Owen Patrick Mooney. I've put it into the chat and I've put Terence's in as well. So it's all in capital letters, so you can't miss it if you want to make a note of it and then contact us as well.
Brilliant. No, that's great. Look, and on behalf of Derry GAA, just like to thank Terence and Owen for their time tonight. Obviously, we were on there just over the hour, but the work that goes in behind the scenes to bring you that was obviously greater than that. So really appreciate your time this week, lads. Really enjoyed that as well. Like the knowledge you two men have is top class. So looking forward to the rest of the webinars now, Owen, and you have big shoes to follow now.
And I'm on my own. I'm on my own next week. I don't have Richard. Richard's the following week with me, so it's just me, myself, and Gina, and maybe the dog. The dog's beside me here, so play for all. So looking forward to that, Chris.
Chris, thanks a million.
That's great.
I enjoyed it. Good man, Chris.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.
All right.